Rumi.
Hello, my name is Jess.
Hi, I'm Joaquin. Hello.
A bit of cheering after Joaquin. Sure, he's cheering after everyone, no?
I told them to come.
Thanks for coming this afternoon and sort of listening in on this. I wonder if a good place to start actually is not with the questions that you've been sent, but actually I'm just interested to know what got you into musical theatre. Who were your role models? What were the things that made you excited?
I got into it because my parents used to like sing at church, and so I was kind of always around that environment. And I kind of knew I wasn't that intellectual from a young age, so I was like, oh, okay, I'll do musical theatre, you know, just sing and dance. And then the more I got into it, the more passion I got for it. And yeah, that's how I got into it from a young age, but because I was surrounded by it from a very early stage.
I started very young. I was a little boy in the Philippines, and we didn't have easy access to theater or musical theater in the flesh, so we would be watching regularly VHS and Betamax, I'm dating myself here, videos of The Sound of Music, Fiddler on the Roof, Oliver was one of my all-time favorite ones, and listening to cast recordings that I would have to wait 8 to 10 weeks after I've ordered them for them to fly onto the Philippines. And yeah, I burned my CD player, my cassette player down, and I just grew up loving it. And I would take summer workshops, and the rest is history until I booked my first job at 10 years old. Yeah. And the rest is history. I got bitten by the theater bug and never looked back.
I started out singing. My primary school they did this show once, and it was Britain through the decades and music through the decades. And I was like 7, and they were like, do you want to sing Etta James at last because this girl's backed out? And I was like, yeah. And then kept singing that song at like every occasion. It was like the only song that I loved. And then I wanted to be in High School Musical, and yeah, it's not as, I mean, that was a beautiful story. Mine is less exciting, but yeah.
Any chance of a bit of Etta James now?
Oh yeah, I was gonna say.
Ooh, do, 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 do. No.
We'll take that though, we'll take that for sure. It's really interesting to kind of hear all the different pathways that you guys have kind of come through, and the different influences and the different things that you, I suppose, hold on to dearly now as performers and artists, right? The things that make you who you are. Looking a bit at the future and sort of what's around at the moment, I guess I'm interested to know a bit about what sort of East and Southeast Asian sort of talent is exciting you at the moment. People you've seen, it might be creatives or artists, or stories that are being told. How is it making you feel seeing a bit more representation?
I think it's really exciting, and I might be biased, but Death Note was definitely a highlight to see on stage, and it's just exciting meeting more Southeast Asian actors, because you know, when I went to drama school, I was the only one in my year, or pretty much the whole school, so I wasn't surrounded by it. So the more shows I do and the more actors that I meet, it's really exciting. We share our stories about, you know, parents and food, and I think it's just really lovely to you know, match your culture and just talk about that. So yeah.
Yeah, I think again, Death Note, beautiful. Miss Saigon, not to plug, but that was incredibly special personally. I have to say that EC representation that excites me the most is EC casting within roles that aren't EC specific, because I feel like that is the most progressive way forward in terms of representation that isn't, you know, stereotyping what an EC performer has to contribute to the industry. Apart from their heritage, they can just contribute as a person. And yeah, so I mean, this actually, lucky me, this entire panel, everybody here again contributes so significantly to the industry as EC creatives, which is very special. And also, again, a huge, like, this is a plug, but Frances Merley McCann, she's actually one of my biggest inspirations in this industry right now, because she did Bonnie and Clyde, she's done Heather, she plays these leads that have not been EC specific, and that makes me really emotional and happy. Yeah.
I think what's exciting to see as well is there's lots of EC stories being told. And I'm not sure which is the chicken or the egg there. Is it because there are more easy talent now that's so visible and so capable and so skilled and talented? Or is it this desire for more EC stories to be told, whether they're in musicals or in straight plays? I think whatever it is, it's just nice to see more EC voices up in lights, and it's just nice to see like My Neighbor Totoro doing so well. Spirited Away is coming in. There's specific overtures that's happening at the Chocolate Factory. There's so many great stories of what you guys did in Sheffield. But what's interesting as well is, like, my West End debut, according to what Rumi was saying, was not me necessarily as an EC face, but I was cast because of the merit of what I could bring to the table. So when we did Heathers, we were not necessarily cast because we were EC, but not despite of, but I don't know how, I'm in spite of, you know what I mean? Like, and that's great, because now we can bring our own heritage into a character that wasn't otherwise Asian in the first place, but we're bringing our Asian-ness to the whole thing, and there is space for that. And I was an American jock, which is great, because usually in old films or old shows, the Asian guy is just the sidekick or the best friend. But now to be the football quarterback, suspension of disbelief, I'm 5'8", but people bought into that, and it's great. And when Rumi played one of the Heathers as well, Heather Duke, I remember, we took that photo because we were now making waves as Asian actors, Asian bodies in non-traditional Asian stories, which is great. I think your West End debut was in Ms. Again, like in Les Mis. I mean, I know that because I was talking about like faces that really inspire you. I remember when I moved to the UK, I'm like, oh, Just Lee, she's an Asian in the West End. I'm like, yes. It's just inspiring to be able to work with these faces and this incredible talent, and also share that heritage.
I certainly think that's something all three of you share, and that I'm incredibly in awe of, the way in which you've kind of completely subverted expectations, where you've been given parts, whether they are EC parts or not, and you've kind of gone, well, actually, that doesn't really come into it. Who I am, what I bring as an artist is the main thing that I want to share, and I think that lands really beautifully. So thank you. What advice might you have for any sort of early career artists from sort of EC backgrounds wanting to work in theatre and musical theatre?
Just do it. There is no time better than now. There is no space wider than this industry for you than our industry. So like, just do it. I had everything against me when I made the jump from the Philippines to the UK. All of the pragmatic, practical, logical, my Filipino parents telling me that there's no career in musical theater and wanting me to be an engineer or something. I mean, it's there. That's part of our stories. But if you let that fear cripple you from making that first step, then the unknown or those shoulda, woulda, couldas will win. But the more of us in this space and in this industry excelling at high levels there are, then people are going to stand up and listen.
I think my advice would be to stand up for what's right, because I've had many times, especially drama school, where things were said that were inappropriate, and I think back then I just didn't have a backbone. But I mean, nowadays it's getting better in drama schools or just in general, but it was hard. But I think if you stick up for what's right, it's always gonna turn out positive. And also just be kind as a general in this industry. It's such a hard industry to be in. And yeah, I think just be kind to yourself and others is really important to remind yourself of, what I'd say.
Yeah, I think, to be honest, advice, it feels really strange to be giving advice. It wouldn't be a far cry from any advice I'd give to anyone, regardless of heritage, because being EC is just another thing that makes you individual, and it gives you character and personality, and not to shy away from it. Actually, I think that a lot, especially early on in my life, I think I was scared to explore that part of me, and I wasn't really proud of it, sadly. To be honest, even up until doing Miss Saigon in Sheffield, I never celebrated that part of me until being surrounded by other people who were, and it was just so beautiful, and it draws people to you, and it drew me to them, and celebrating all the cultures. I think, yeah, my advice would be to celebrate that part of yourself as well, because even if there are people in this industry that might not want to give you the same opportunities, you can't also be another person that would take that away from yourself as well. So celebrate it, and other people will want to celebrate you too, I think.
That's really wise, I think, because I think it's really easy to homogenize a group of people, right? It's really easy to kind of go, well, let's do a panel on celebrating EC performers or artists. Well, actually, even within that, there's huge diversity in terms of lived experiences, of where you grew up, what your family kind of background is, and actually, I think part of what this conversation is about, and a larger conversation is about identifying the individual and recognizing the merit at its own, and kind of going, well, actually, that is a part of your identity that you bring to your job, because it is a job as much as it's art, and kind of also go, well, that's not all that I am. There are all these other parts, just like you and everyone else, I think. Do you have a sense of the kind of shifts and changes that you want to see happen in the industry more widely?
I would say keep it going. I mean, we're only going in a good direction so far. I think it's important to continue celebrating EC stories, but again, I'm gonna keep going back to a casting not like in spite of heritage. I think that to me would be the best foot forward to be seen for all roles, and I think across all ethnicities as well. Obviously, within reason, there are boundaries, but I think celebrating people as well as what they might appear as, if that makes sense. I'm just repeating myself now.
I think it's exciting because I think more and more shows, casters, creative teams are open to different and unique points of views. And your heritage and your background will give you a different and unique point of view. And we're seeing shows now that are open to different heritages and different backgrounds and different points of views that are open to telling these characters' stories. And I think that's great. Simultaneously, we're seeing more and more culturally specific stories being told, which is absolutely great. And again, that's why I'm saying theater is theater. This is the space that all of these discussions can be had. It's boundless because it's art. This is where two shows that have opposing views can exist at the same time. That's why I love this industry, I love this craft, because art is a space where all of these ideas can come together and we can talk about them in a very healthy and encouraging and uplifting way. And I'm glad that when my agent calls me for auditions, there are a lot of non-Asian specific stories that I'm being seen for, which is great, especially in theater. Might not be specific for film yet and television. It's a different journey there. But for theater, there's a little bit more openness to the uniqueness that an individual can bring.
What they said.
What they said.
What they said.
What about you, Anthony?
That's a good one.
Reverse card.
I suppose when I first started directing, about 15 years ago, I was really, really sure that what I didn't want to do was make work that were East and Southeast Asian stories. And part of the reason for that is because I was really worried about being pigeonholed. I was really worried that for the rest of my career as a theatre maker, as a director, I would just be asked to make those shows. And I suppose growing up, I grew up in London, I grew up in this country, and I sort of didn't have loads of friends who were from a similar kind of cultural background as myself. It was still a thing that I was trying to navigate, and a thing that I was trying to acknowledge, I suppose. It was, I would go to friends' houses at school, after school, and get fish fingers and peas for tea, and they would come round and be like steamed fish and goji berry and tree bark. And that's hard, and that's weird, when you're 9 years old, 10 years old. And so I think there's quite a lot, without turning this into a therapy session, there's quite a lot of latent figuring out of identity that felt really, really important. And so I guess I was scared of that when I first started. I was like, yes, I am Chinese, but I'm also all these other things. Look at all these other things. Look at all these shiny things that aren't the thing that I felt like throughout my entire life I had been defined by, actually. And I suppose in the last 5 or 6 years, I sort of felt really excited to make work that involves EC artists, creatives, tells EC stories. And I kind of also go, well, why not? Why shouldn't we tell those stories? And we should be able to do that and more, right? And I suppose to kind of double back on the initial question, it's a case of more of, right? We should be able to tell easy stories and other stories. We shouldn't have to be defined by that, which I guess is what everyone is saying. And I think it's about more work, more representation, more voices, more people telling different stories. And then we get into a place where we don't have a need for a panel like this. It could be nice, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Are there any sort of golden nuggets of advice that you guys carry around for each other or for yourself?
My biggest advice would probably be, I think there's a lot of times where I really kick myself or put myself down if I, don't do a good audition or don't do a good performance. But at the end of the day, we're only human. If you can't sing it today, you can maybe sing it tomorrow or the next day. It's about perspective, and that's something I always remind myself of. It's just perspective. And at the end of the day, we're not saving lives. We're going on stage, singing songs and telling a story, and that's the most important thing. And if you don't hit that specific note, it's absolutely fine. Just cancel and continue. So that would be my advice.
I was going to say that.
Sorry.
A golden nugget of advice is, I guess this is an EC panel, but this goes for anyone, is just embrace your uniqueness and your individuality. And I don't want to sound cheesy because so many more important actors have said this in very different ways as well. But just embrace it. I've learned that as well in the past 4 or 5 years, to really own yourself, because that's what is so interesting to the creative team, to the audition panel. They're looking for your specific point of view and everything that comes with it. All of your background, all of your struggle, all of your history, all of your heritage, all of that comes into that 5 minutes in the room. And internal thing, you've experienced that when I auditioned for Anthony as well. It was all of that you can bring into that moment that nobody else, even if they're singing the same song, can replicate. And I think it's this embracing who you are. And it's hard because we like to assimilate. We like to, blend in. We look at our heroes and we try to copy what they do. We try to copy their sound. We try to copy how they sing and all that. And we start to forget that we have a unique voice, physically and metaphorically. And that's a voice that needs to be heard. So embrace who you are and everything but good and bad that comes with it.
Oh, thank you. Ruby Sutton, golden nugget of advice.
Golden nugget. Jeez. I would say that as important as it is to look inward, I think that we can sometimes all get really caught up looking in at ourselves and observing ourselves, but actually this whole industry is about people and about other people who you work with, who you do it for. And it wouldn't happen without these people, so be kind, but don't be kind to be kind. Connect with people for yourself and for them, and make relationships with the people you work with, but the people that you want to work for, the consumers as you would. Like, it's an industry of love, otherwise it wouldn't exist. So do it for others as to do it for yourself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, and I really like the blend of where one sits as an individual, and then also the relationship that has with an audience, right? And that feels really, really important, I think, to kind of acknowledge that it's both sides of the stage. Which actually brings me around to: are there any questions from the audience? Kind of a section. There's someone in a blue t-shirt running across the stage. What is he trying to tell me? Nothing. He's telling me nothing. Just sharing a mic. Can we go to the question from the lady in the Totoro t-shirt? Totoro, Totoro.
That was actually non-intentional. I put on the shirt and I realised I'm going to the wrong musical con. Anyway, the question I have for everybody is there a particular role that you want to see yourself in, whether as a lead role or a supporting cast, and why?
I'll go. I used to, I think I share this in some of the interviews that I've given as well. Before the pandemic, I'd have a post-it vision board, all the shows I wanted to be in, all the roles I wanted to be in, and the pandemic hit, and I just took it down. And not because I got depressed or got discouraged, maybe part of it was that, but also when I realized that you can't really control what the future will hold. Like, for example, I didn't know Death Note was in my cards. You know, I didn't have Death Note up on my wall saying that's a show I want to be in. You know, and when I took that down, what I did become was more grateful and more open to certain possibilities, apart from just needing to pay rent as well. I need to say yes to all the jobs I went in for. But more importantly, so many jobs opened up. Heather's in particular. I had no idea what Heather's was. Don't kill me, Heather fans. I had no idea what it was, and I auditioned for it, and I booked it, and I didn't know what that was going to be. And that opened up another door. I did a new musical called Killing the Cat, and then now, and these were shows that I had no clue. They would never have landed a post-it on my board. But when I became just focused on the work at hand and being the best possible professional and colleague and a directable actor, that opened up so many more opportunities for me and widened my horizon for dream roles and dream jobs. So now I'm just open to anything.
Don't skirt the question. Answer the question. What part would you want to play and why?
No! There are venues, though, that I'd like to be in. The Sheffield is one of them. I'm really jealous of them, my Miss Saigon friends. And the National Theatre. These are venues I'd love to be in, maybe at the Globe as well, or the RSC. So these are venues and creative teams I'd love and kill to work with.
Thanks, Becky. Jessica Lee, Rumi-san?
My dream role was Miss Saigon, I'm not gonna lie. It was the only song that I sung during drama school, and so yeah, it was definitely Miss Saigon and the role of Kim. That was definitely my dream role. So yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about that being the song that you sang most at drama school. Was that sort of through choice? Was that a thing that you felt really connected to?
I think it was because it was kind of the only role that I saw myself in back in the day, and it was the only song that Southeast Asian actors were singing in shows. So that's why that song was the only one that I kind of sang for about 3 years. So yeah, and also it's a great song.
And now that you've done it, does that change things?
I think I'll still keep it in my rep. I don't think I can take it into auditions anymore, just in case I do a bad job. And then they're like, how the hell did she get that job? But I think I'm branching out definitely more, especially with these new shows coming about. And yeah, I don't want to pigeonhole myself, like you said, with just that song and just that show. But yeah.
There's a slightly bigger question that I think might be useful to lean into. When you go to auditions, do you actively avoid songs that you've sung in shows, or do you kind of go for them because you're lazy and it's easier than learning something new?
I've definitely reduce, reuse, recycle all the time.
Yeah, reuse and recycle all the time. As long as you feel like you're at your best moment singing that song, even if you've done it before, it's fine.
Rumi-san, dream role, why?
I'm so sorry. I would love to tell you my dream role, but I just can't jinx it. I just can't say it out loud. It's like...
It's Totoro.
No, I mean, again, yeah, I'm so sorry. I actually can't. But Joaquin is completely right that I think it can be a little bit more, can drive you insane having roles because they only come about every so often. And then once they're gone, it's like, okay, well, now I'm gonna die and not do my dream. Like, whoa, this is deep. There's creatives I wanna work with and there's venues I wanna work at, and I wanna do it all. I wanna do theatre, I wanna do screen, I wanna do plays, I wanna do all of it. But roles, I'm so sorry. So, yeah.
Or maybe we'll be lucky enough to, if you get the role, will you share it with the world that this was the dream role? How about that?
Yeah, hell yeah.
Fine. We can deal on that, I think. There's a question from a gentleman at the back. Yeah.
Thank you. My question is because you're talking about representation, and it goes further, of course, than the actors. So, is there enough space right now in the UK for ESEA, creatives like composers, playwrights, directors? Is there enough space, and are there some that we should be watching out for the upcoming years?
That was a pointing at me. Yes, is the short answer. I think that there is a lot of astonishing talent that already exists within lots of different communities, especially within musical theatre and theatre. I think whether those people have been given those opportunities that sort of elevate them, that allow them to learn, to develop their craft and their art, is a different question. I think that's changing, I think that's shifting, and I think there's a really lovely balance between those who have served their apprenticeship and a whole new generation of early career talent that's coming through as well. And I think as they find their feet, as we give them more opportunities to shine, as we give them more opportunities to tell their stories, it will, I think, have a profound effect on our industry across the board, both in terms of the shows that we're seeing, the stories that are being told, and the people who are telling them, I guess. Do you guys encounter more sort of diversity within creative teams and makers than before?
Only recently, yeah, which is really exciting to see. But again, before when I graduated, I barely saw any Southeast Asian crew, creators, none of that. But only recently for me.
I think Death Note was a great example as well for the diversity backstage and among stage management. The band had an incredible amount of diversity as well, and again, we say diversity, so fleetingly, but these are also people who are at the top of their game. They're so good. So they didn't just book it because they were diverse, you know what I mean? But then they were the best people to tell that story, to play a specific score because they understood it from a certain perspective that was unique to them. And I'd like to think that that's why we're booking jobs as well, because we're booking that unique perspective that we can bring to the table. So yeah, definitely, it's an exciting couple of years recently, and I think it's only going to open up more.
Who's your favourite EC creative that isn't on this stage with you?
Alex Army, she's a choreographer. She was in Hamilton as a dancer, and she's
incredible.
Just gone up and up and up.
Yeah, I'd say Alex. I've worked with her.
Can't repeat.
Oh, can't repeat.
Give the people what they want. They want names.
All right, great. I would say Chris Poon, great MD who is unstoppable, which is great. And another Chris Ma was our MD as well for Death Note. Incredible.
Yeah, they were going to be my next two options as well. Chris Poon and Chris Ma, fantastic. Yeah, incredible, top of the game. It's so hard to choose. I mean, genuinely, it's actually quite a small community as well. So I feel like once you know a group, like everybody introduces each other to each other because it is a community, it's a little hub. So yeah.
Chris Poon also has a lovely perm. So if you ever see him, congratulate him on that.
Perm.
Next question, please.
How would the average theatergoer continue to support the creation of more spaces, both on stage and backstage?
Good. Come and see the work, right? I think that's sort of where it all sits. Be the wonderful, wonderful audience members that you are, and continue to come and see shows. Come and see the shows that need support. You know, I think it's really easy to go and see the big musical that's come across from Broadway, and of course you should go and see that, but balance it out. You know, for every one of those that you see, try and see 2 or 3 little things that are happening along the edges, around the fringes. Because I think it's in those spaces that magic really happens.
Yeah, I think that's it, isn't it, really? I think for EC representation and the championing of the work to happen, there has to be a lot of new stuff, right? So I think it's having the want to maybe go and see that new work, because I know, especially at the moment, there's so much amazing stuff on, and it's great, especially to follow. Social media is such a fun thing, isn't it? Because it can make or break a show also, and I'm not great on social media, but I think that sometimes it can be incredible because then the show comes up. It can also mean that if a show doesn't have that exposure, that it's not something that would necessarily do well, or people would think to go and see or even know to go and see. So I guess talking about it as well, if there's something that you've seen that you love and there is that representation, then tell your friends, tell your family, tell people you don't like.
Well, that's just what you guys both said. I couldn't have said it better.
Thank you. I think we've probably got time for one more. No, then Joaquin will do a tap dance.
I wish I could.
Nothing. Great.
One more question.
Thank you so much for coming, folks. Can we give our panel a lovely round of applause?
And thank you for the last minute hosting.
Enjoy the last of music come. Thank you, guys.